In early 2021, YouTuber Call Me Carson became embroiled in some controversy with his relation and behavior with some of his fans. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Call Me Carson situation, in 2020, Call Me Carson was accused of sexting a 17-year-old while he was 19 years old, and due to this being a 2-year age gap, the entire internet went crazy over this, having Carson's image completely shattered in only just a few days. This has always been a super controversial situation, and it's had people still calling him a sick predator, and having people like myself saying that 17 and 19 isn't that big of a deal. I know I made a Call Me Carson video last year, but looking back at it, it was pretty vague and I didn't really go into much detail about the actual drama at hand. So, in this video, we're going to be revisiting the Call Me Carson situation 2 years later. Call Me Carson created a channel in May of 2012, and would start off posting your typical Minecraft Let's Play videos at the age of 13 years old. Carson's rise in the beginning stages wasn't anything too impressive, as his channel didn't really grow at all for about 8 years straight. But fast forwarding to 2019, this is where Carson would find his success by starting his own Minecraft server called SMP Live, which was a Minecraft server where Carson and his friends would all livestream themselves playing Minecraft together at the same time, as this was a way to collaborate on a daily basis and have everyone be able to have their own sort of content. And this was surprised to be where Call Me Carson would find his first big success, as throughout 2019 and 2020, Carson and his friends would all make SMP live streams on a daily basis on Twitch, and this would begin to have Carson's videos average millions of views, as people found Carson's growth strategy super unique. And despite getting cheated on by his girlfriend in January of 2020, and also getting completely backstabbed by his best friend, things were going just fine for Carson, until about a year later when everything would change. On January 4th, 2021, a drama alert video will come out where two of Carson's friends, Noah Hugbox and Travis, would both come along to drama alert where they were explaining and exposed at the fact that Carson was sexting a 17-year-old while he was 19 years old.
Guys, what happened? How did this all come about?
Well, I'm gonna stick to the facts here, which was that one day in March, he called me shortly before he told Travis. Everybody was up in LA and he told most of them face to face, but he called me and I picked up the phone and he was basically like, I have to tell you something. And then he told me that he did underage girls, and I think that he said that they were fans. And that was what I was told.
Did he tell you how old they were?
At the time, no.
However, there was a lot of information that wasn't provided in this. For starters, when Keemstar interviewed Carson's friends, the two of them didn't even know the girl's age, which is something you definitely need to know. The only thing that they knew was Carson was sexting a minor in early 2020, but they didn't know if he was still doing it or what the age gap was. And for some reason, throughout this entire controversy, people always try to put the blame on Keemstar, since, well, it's Keemstar. But you shouldn't blame him, as he did his job by interviewing two of the most credible people in this situation, and since they were the ones who were closest to Carson. But at the end of the video, they would say that the new Carson was taking time off to try and work on himself. But when this interview came out, there couldn't exactly be any verified proof, since Carson's friends could barely answer any bare minimum questions. And this would just cause a whole lot of hate now building up on a Call Me Carson, as the only thing that the public knew was that Carson was sexting minors. But the people would get a break, because later that day, a Twitter user going by the name of Sam will come forward with her story accusing Call Me Carson of grooming her and claiming that he's a pedophile. Now I'm just gonna say that Carson didn't groom her and isn't a pedophile. It's not like Carson is a 30-year-old man going after a 17-year-old, and calling him a pedophile because of a 2-year age gap is just dumb. And like I mentioned in my last video, people just use the word grooming to make a situation seem more worse than it really is. In this screenshot, it does show Carson talking pretty sexual to the accuser, and that's obvious. But the definition of grooming is manipulating someone and trying to get them to do things that you want them to do. And in the messages, there wasn't any manipulation. The only bad thing and irresponsible made by Carson was him getting news from a 17-year-old, which isn't right at all. After Carson's first victim came out, another one will come out and claim that they were 17 and Carson was 20 at the time, but this one wasn't proved to be real, as they did leak screenshots, but this wasn't proven to be accurate. Another huge problem throughout the situation is when some of Carson's ex-friends tried to give their own insight about the drama. Call Me Carson's former friend Jay Schlatt posted a video giving his own side about the situation, but rather than giving substantial proof, his video for his side was extremely vague. In his video, he stated that Carson told him that he was sexing minors, and then after that, Jay Schlatt said that he essentially cut all ties with him. He also mentions how Carson told him that he was getting help but wasn't actually getting help.
But a few weeks ago, I started having some conversations with some of Carson's closest friends, including his former roommates. And in my discussions with them, I heard some things that suggested that Carson wasn't improving in the areas that he should have been. And he was showing signs of continuing some of his inappropriate behavior. And apparently this was happening while I was spending all this time trying to help him. And while he was saying that he was working on himself and that he was changing and that he hates the person he used to be.
Another one of Carson's former friends who didn't do the best job of handling this situation was Slimeicle. On Twitter, when the allegations were made public, Slimeicle would want to make a post about his response about everything, where in his statement, he says how as soon as Carson told the lunch club that he was sexing a 17-year-old, he immediately stopped associating with Khloe Kardashian and the lunch club. And that would be fine if it were true. In the initial Drama Alert video, Noah Hugbox stated that Carson told him that he was sexing minors in early 2020, and that's also what Slimeicle said too. But when you look, Slimeicle didn't stop associating with Khloe Kardashian, his last interaction with him being in August of 2020 where he was featured in one of his videos. And what's even more weird is that Slimeicle legit said that he contacted law enforcement on Carson because he expected a crime was being committed, which is odd to say the least. Carson's former friend's stories are really inconsistent, and as a whole, it has made the entire situation even more confusing and messy. Until August of that year. On August 25th, 2021, about 5 months after the initial allegations came out, Khloe Kardashian released his official response to the controversy levied at him. In his response, he stated to try and make up and turn something bad into something positive, he would be donating to charity and giving all of his profits or earnings to charity for an entire year, which is good. But looking back at his response, it's only 1 minute long and didn't really go over the allegations at hand. Since there was so much misinformation and people turning and twisting the narrative, when it could have been so much easier if he actually addressed what actually happened. But nonetheless, his video would receive a lot of support from his loyal fan base, and Carson was able to push through and was able to get back to his YouTube videos for a while, until the controversy was resurfaced. In September of 2022, Noah Hugbox would go on to make a statement on Twitter called Game Over, where he goes over to explain about the Khloe Kardashian situation more in depth this time than they did previously. Throughout his tweet longer or even on Twitter, Noah didn't provide any sort of proof whatsoever, as that has been the biggest problem throughout this entire situation, no evidence, as it has just been a he said what situation with no actual proof. Over the next several months, I started asking around what others have been told, and as I found out, every single person was told an entirely different story as to how many girls he was contacting and what the ages were. This pushed me to do something, and I actually got the entire group to agree to record a video of each of us simply saying what we were told, and uploading directly to the Lunch Club channel. No baseless accusations, no clout chasing, just the truth. At the last moment, I mainly pulled out of the video because, in J-Slad's words, he had too much to lose. Deja vu, it never was supposed to go through Keemstar. People who knew this to be the case because they were there, they took to Twitter to flame me for going to Keemstar, when it was actually Keemstar who messaged me first after somebody tipped them off. I wasn't going to back down because so many people were being selfish cowards. And thankfully, a close friend had my back. Drama Alert was the absolute last resort, because again, this stuff was not drama to me, but this doesn't exactly add up. Since 2 years ago, he didn't mention a single thing that he mentioned in his tweet longer. In the Drama Alert video, it just seemed like Noah was not prepared since he didn't know the girl's age. Plus, why wait an entire 2 years to write this lengthy statement after the drama's pretty much been settled? Noah also goes on to compare the streamer and YouTuber Mizkif to Khloe Kardashian. For the unfamiliar, Mizkif was actually someone who streamed with Khloe Kardashian before, and Mizkif was actually exposed for covering up his friend's track for a sexual assault that he committed. And in Noah's tweet longer, he states that Khloe Kardashian's manager was trying to cover up his tracks as well. But the only thing is that Mizkif covering up his friend's tracks was proven to be real. But when Noah says that Carson's manager was trying to cover up his tracks, it's just hard to believe since there was zero proof. As every time Noah says something, there is no proof. It's a he said what and so on and so forth. And that's not how you handle situations like these. Like I said, 17 to 19 is not a big deal. Obviously, Carson getting news from them is an irresponsible thing to do. But if we look at the Pyro Single situation, where Pyro was accused of grooming a 15-year-old boy while he was 19 years old, Pyro didn't even know the age of the person he was talking sexually to. But when Pyro came forward with his response, he was essentially left in the clear. But when Carson came back, there were people still shitting on him and calling him a predator. Overall, there are people who have done way worse shit than Carson, most of them with a much bigger age gap than just a 2-year gap. But Carson has somewhat successfully been able to come back and move on from all this, as not all the damage can be undone, as his views have dropped since then, and a good portion of his audience has stopped watching him. Situations like these can be career-ruining allegations, and when you have people running with unproven narratives, then that's only gonna make the situation even more confusing. It has just been a word of mouth and not actual hard proof. But Carson's image won't be because he was a funny creator that people liked. People will always remember him because of the allegations anytime his name is brought up, and that's unfortunately how it's always gonna be. But that's all for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and drop a like if you want to. Go for my Twitter at Scorpion_1 and join the Discord link down in the description below. But thanks for the support recently, thanks for watching, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.